Good evening, guys. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the pilot episode of It's Not an Orb, It's Dust. No, it's the other way around.
That's a mouthful. I love it.
It's a bit of a mouthful, but we're going to eventually know. It's not an orb, it's dust. Sorry.
Yeah, sometimes it's bugs.
No, there's a bit of a technical issue on that pilot show. It is not an orb, it's dust talk show. Sorry, something came up goofy on the screen there. Yeah, welcome, guys. Welcome to the pilot episode. Just to give you a bit of a background on this show and which direction I'm going to be taking this. So, some of you who's tuning in at the moment must know the other show that I do with Kathy and Linda. We talk generally with field experts and that kind of thing. With this, I'm directing more to do with people that have had paranormal experiences. I'm delving into the different realms of the paranormal as well. I'm going to have subject experts as well about near-death experiences, that kind of thing as well on the show. So kickoff times in the new year, and I'm going to we're going to probably start the second week of January, third week of January once I get a schedule lined up. I've got the first episode in the new year is going to be an interesting one. I've got an interview with a young lady that was exorcised a few years ago by a priest, and we're going to get her story as well. So it will be pretty good. So for this Christmas special, Merry Christmas, everyone. I have my good friend Trevor on the show. Trevor, say hello to the audience.
Hey, everybody. Hope you guys are having a great holiday.
Would you like to tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I'm the director of Western Idaho Paranormal. We are out near Boise, Idaho. I've been investigating for about 10, 12 years now. Loving what I'm doing. I'm a full-time firefighter for my real job where I actually get paid. And I'm real happy to be here. Pete really must have he's scraping the bottom of the barrel if he's got me hosting.
No, you guys are like my family, man. So I share everything with you guys. Well, not everything, but you guys very close to my heart over the last few years of when we first met, that kind of thing, with the other team you were with. Mm-hmm. And I appreciate you being a part of this journey as well. So
I'm happy to be here, and it's a pleasure.
Good stuff. So we have. I'll hand the mic over to you if you want to introduce this week's guest.
Yeah. So this week's guest is Mark Edwards. Mark Edwards is a team member of Western Idaho Paranormal. He's one of the founding members of Western Idaho Paranormal, and he's been investigating a lot longer than I have. He's been a mentor to me. He's got great stories, a lot of experience, and I think he'll bring something valuable to the show today.
So let's bring him on. Good evening, Mark. Welcome to the show, buddy.
Hi, how you doing? Thanks for having me.
Good, mate. Good. Welcome aboard. Tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
I've been doing paranormal investigations with the team for about 12 years, a little bit on my own before that. I'm retired law enforcement, so I like doing investigations and trying to find out what's what and go from there.
Fantastic. So being the time of year, Christmas, and it's our Christmas special show, we've got maybe have the opportunity to share a few Christmas haunted stories. We were talking about this before the show, and like Charles Dickens made some books that relate to like movies and stuff like that, like Christmas Carol, that kind of thing. So I have a story that I got from a source in the UK of a ghost story that was that apparently it apparently did happen because it was documented in the newspapers as well back in my old country in the UK. So in 1982, in a county called Middlesex, a family were going to sleep at night, and the father decided that he wanted to make the Christmas a little bit more special for the family. So he decided that he would dress up as Santa and do his thing. So he got up and he decided he wanted to take it a little step further. He wanted to crawl down the chimney, and a lot of the places around those areas have the big fire openings where it's not like the small fire, the fireplaces we get in North America, but they're big openings, that kind of thing. So he decided he would go up there. So he dressed as Santa Claus and went up there, and about an hour or so later, his daughter woke up. There was two daughters, and she could hear scuffling and rustling in the front room. So she's got up, and lo and behold, she walks into the front room, and Santa's there, and Santa's under the tree. He's putting gifts under the tree and stuff like that. So she's absolutely ecstatic, excited. So she goes running. First thing she thinks of is go and wake her mum and dad up, and her brother. So she's gone running off and knocked on the door of her brother's room. Said to her brother, "Santa's here, Santa's here." So he's got up out of bed. Mother's in bed, and like, where's Dad? And they've looked around, and Dad's not there. So Santa's here, Santa's here. So they both got up. Both the son and the mother got up, and they've walked into the front room. No one's there. All there was a sack full of presents. So that was kind of weird. And then the mother's taken a kind of step back. It's like, where's his dad? Where's Dad? So he went missing. They called the police out a couple of weeks later. They did a search of the area, search and rescue, and they found the dad actually in the chimney. He caught hold when he was trying to crawl down the chimney, and he grunted himself, hung himself on the way down. So it was like, apparently every year after that, they used to see Santa sitting in the front room, which was their dad. And that story echoed for 20 years until they moved out. And that source was from the Daily Express newspaper, which I got offline about 3 or 4 days ago.
Wow.
So, wow. Sorry, it's very long-winded, but anyway, that's half the show.
Yeah, that's crazy and tragic. Yeah, don't climb down. Don't try. For anybody out there who has that idea of trying to sneak down, don't do it. It's not. Yeah, no. It's not a good idea.
It's not good at all. It's not good at all. So yeah, Mark, I hear you have a story as well.
Yeah, actually, it happened a year ago, last Christmas. My girlfriend was over at the house. It was just my brother and I, my girlfriend for dinner. And we're all done with dinner, and I had done the cooking because I love to cook. And my girlfriend and my brother were in the kitchen cleaning up. I walked into my bedroom to get something, and after I walked into my bedroom, somebody screamed my name in my ear real loud. And so I turned around, walked back out of the bedroom. I said, "What do you guys want?" And they said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Why don't you just scream my name in my ear like you were really upset with me?" And they kind of looked at each other puzzled and said, "No, we didn't say anything. We didn't hear anything." And I do have an entity that does live in my house. I just didn't know it knew my name.
Crazy.
Yeah, I think the whole Christmas ghost stories is kind of interesting. Usually that's something you hear on, Halloween, at least, in the United States. And we were kind of talking about this before the show. I kind of, looked at, the song, it's beginning to look a lot like Christmas, and there's a whole verse in there and talk about there'll be scary ghost stories of Christmases long, long ago. And I grew up and I never heard ghost stories. I mean, the most I ever saw was like the Charles Dickens movie, A Christmas Carol. That was really the only ghost story that I was ever aware of. And so I kind of, looking at where these ghost stories were coming from. Yeah. And if anybody wants to, dive into the history of it a little bit, but it was kind of interesting how much Christmas has changed since, circa 1600s of what it used to be, where originally it was a pagan holiday, the winter solstice and things like that, to what it is today. It's the evolution is pretty interesting.
It's you talk about like those stories of Christmas and stuff like that. I grew up and at the time I didn't really notice it until I kind of moved from the UK over here. We grew up with kind of folk tales and stuff like that all the way around our area, and like obviously we were saying before the show as well, with things like Charles Dickens, that kind of thing. I grew up with that, seeing the plays at school. We used to go to London and see the Christmas Carol, and it was all, we wouldn't sit at, family Christmas dinner and talk about ghosts and stuff like that, but it was definitely embedded in our culture. And when you take a step back and you move to North America and you become into that area, and you suddenly realize it's like, wow, there's that disconnect. But I grew up in the Surrey countryside, and we had things like there was a folklore about various people, characters and stuff like that, like Dick Whittington. I don't think you've heard of him, but he was a highwayman that used to go around in like the 15th, 16th century, and he used to jump out the bush with the people on horse and cart, and his famous line was "Stand and deliver." And we had like stories of him up where I used to live, and the headless horseman and things like that. And it was, it's stories that we used to tell each other when we were kids, like when we were camping at scouts, campfires, that kind of thing. And it just, and it still echoes over now, kind of thing, more than anything else. It's crazy.
Now, did you ever grow up with the urban legend of Krampus?
No. It's I never really heard of it until I came out here. It was
Krampus also originated back in the 1600s. Well, actually, it was a little bit later that when he was kind of coincides with Santa Claus. He originated in Austria, I believe, and he is when Santa puts you on the good list, you get your presents. When you put on the naughty list, he'll leave you a lump of coal. If you're really naughty, Krampus will come and he'll drag you out the house by your big toe and whoop you upside the head. He's the anti Santa, I guess. And but oddly enough, like Bigfoot, nobody's ever seen Krampus. So
one of those things that's still buried somewhere, that's for sure.
But... So if nobody's seen Krampus, how did they get pictures of him?
Right? That's what I want to know.
How do they know what he looks like? That's what I want to know more than anything else.
And there's different variations of what he looks like. Like he looks like kind of like a goat man with long horns and a really long tongue. Some say he looks like a man in a dark suit. So I don't know.
Crazy. So, Mark, you are a man of experience in this field. Well, not experience. You've been in it quite some time. What stories do you have? Tell us about some of your ventures.
Oh, I suppose the one that people that are around here in Idaho want to hear the most about is there's a place called the Idaho State Penitentiary, and it was built in 1873 and was in operation till either 1973 or 1976 when they had a riot and they burnt quite a bit of it, so they built a new prison. Anyway, the prison is extremely haunted, and we had a news crew following our team, and it just so happened that they were with myself and a gentleman by the name of Pete and a gentleman by the name of Mike. And the three of us were showing them around the different buildings, and we happened to be in one of the houses that's called Death House. They have 4 of them all together, and that's where the prisoners go that were to be executed eventually. So we're in Death House 2, and on the very bottom floor, one cell door is open. So you can kind of walk in and see what it looked like, and they're really tiny cells. They're probably 5.5, 6 feet wide by probably 8 feet deep, and they got 2 bunks, and that's about it in it. Anyway, so Pete says that a couple years prior, he had taken a picture of what looked like a face in that cell and asked me to walk over to the cell door that was open and stick my hand in. I said, okay. So the whole time we're doing this, the film crew is filming it from Channel 6 News here in Boise. And so I put my arm in, pardon me, and nothing happens. And Pete goes, no, too high. Put it in lower. So I take my hand and I put it in lower. And he goes, oh, no. Split the difference. So I'm thinking, okay, this is just a tease. He's going to, give me a snipe hunt, a witch hunt type thing, just to play a game, a trick on me. So as I'm putting my hand in about waist high, this head pops out from the bunk in there. and an icy cold hand reaches out and grabs my arm.
Oh.
I scream like a little girl, jump straight up and back about 3 feet. The whole thing is caught on video. And in fact, the film crew turned it in for a documentary, and they actually won an Emmy for it.
Fantastic. Let's play this clip where Mark poops himself.
And asked me to walk over, so I walked over there and to reach inside the door.
To your left. Is that the bottom left? Sorry about that. What was that?
Leaving even more unanswered questions about the unexplained.
And asked me.
That definitely.
And they say white men can't jump.
I know.
Well, fat old ones can from time to time.
You know
Absolutely.
what? Now, in all seriousness, what's impressive to me about the video is, having known Mark for as long as I have, Mark is very down to earth. He's a ex-police. So not much is going to startle Mark. I mean, this was a pretty legitimate reaction. So
yeah, we can laugh about it now, but at the time it wasn't all that funny.
And kudos to Channel 6 for editing all the swear words that were coming out of Pete Kruger's mouth.
It's funny that we spend all this time looking in the window trying to get things like that, and then when something like that actually happens, it's like, oh fuck!
Yeah.
It's human.
But then afterwards we go, that was so cool.
Yeah, I know, right? But it's I don't know. It's human nature to be fearful against something like that. I'd expect anyone to jump like that, but it's the people that that theaterize it and say, "Oh, I've just been touched, I've been scratched," and there's no reaction whatsoever. You're like, "Did you really get touched?" That's the thing. But I remember, over the past 26, 27 years, I've been touched probably a handful of times, and more so since I've been in BC, since I've been in North America. One particular time we were a place in BC called Steveston Harbour, and we're in an old it's a netting factory, but it's actually based in the harbour, and it wasn't so much the actual building itself, it's the land, because it's rich in history. It was one of the original exits and entry points for China to enter Canada, I think it was the late 18th century, which is, it's nothing in American history, but it's quite significant with us, and it was kind of its own town and such. So we was up in this boathouse, and it was freezing. It was about -3, which is cold for the lower mainland, and I was getting grumpy, and sometimes you're just reluctant about, I just want to go now. Nothing's going to happen in here, and so I'm on the I'm up, and we've got our EVP session and stuff like that. I said, we're going to go now. If you're going to do anything, can you please touch me, make contact with me, just do something just to give us acknowledgement you're here. Nothing happened before that or anything like that, but God strikes me down. Something pulled my ear, and to the point where it yanked my ear, and you could hear the click in my ear, and it pulled it to the point where I pulled back, and I was just like, I'm done, I'm out of here. And I F and blind and seed and stuff like that, and I was kicking things out. I threw my voice recorder, I dropped my voice recorder on the floor as well, which is a Zoom H4, almost breaking that. But it just, once something like that happens, it's like, I just need to kind of go away and put myself into perspective and stuff like that about what exactly happened, and then and just re-gear myself and then move forward, that kind of thing. But crazy.
That's crazy. I mean, to me, I haven't been physically touched a whole lot. The only time I ever was also at the old Idaho Penitentiary, and we can talk about that here in a few. But what I think is interesting, in some of those reactions is, thinking about the fact that these things are able to touch you, but you can't touch them. We can't seem to touch them back. And so that's where it's kind of like, ooh.
Yeah, how does that work? That's
Exactly.
a different story altogether. But have you had any physical contact yourself, Trevor, over the last little bit?
Yeah, just the once was over Halloween at the old Idaho Penitentiary, and we were volunteering there for their annual Frightened Felon event, and it's kind of a big Halloween party that they put on every year. And I got to dress up as an inmate, and they locked me. We get locked in one of the cells, and we kind of mess with people when they're walking by and trying to scare them as they're doing their tours, and it's kind of fun. This was my first night doing this, and I was talking to some of the other inmates and asked what cells that we get to hang out in, and this one gal says, "Well, I don't care where we go as long as I don't get put back in the same cell I was in last night." And of course, my interest was piqued. I'm like, "Well, why is that?" When she said that she had been sitting there on the floor, things were winding down. She got a little sleepy. She kind of dozed off, and when she suddenly woke up, there was a man standing in the cell with her. But the door was still locked, and nobody had come in, and it scared her real bad. She kind of closed her eyes and screamed, and when she opened her eyes, the man was gone. Of course, I said, "That's the cell that I want."
Straight in there.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I got into the cell and was kind of just doing my thing and messing with people, having a good time. Night was kind of going on. Once again, things started to calm down, and I was standing in the cell with my back to the door, just kind of staring at the ceiling. And I heard it sounded like somebody was coming around the corner. You can hear people walking on the concrete in there really well, echoes. And they walked right up to the cell door. And I just kind of waited a second, and I felt somebody poke me right in the middle of my back. So I jumped and turned around and went, "Rah!" to scare him, and there was nobody there. And then I kind of took a look at where I was in the cell, and I was standing in the middle of the cell room a good 6 feet from the cell, from the bars. So nobody on the outside could have reached in and touched me. So yeah, it was pretty interesting.
It's funny, the misconception sometimes though with when people think that they're being touched and stuff like that. It's, a lot of times there isn't, natural reasons behind it, because when you're in an investigation, you're focused on that, the zone. You're trying to hear noises and stuff like that, and you're very sensitive to the environment, and the slightest touch.
Yeah.
The slightest touch, you're like, oh, you're kind of on edge. I remember one time we were investigating a log cabin, probably about 9-10 years ago, and it felt like I got touched across here, but it was because I was wearing a hoodie under a coat, and it was actually the hoodie brushing up against the side of me, and I turned my head slightly like that, and it just tickled me, and I just lost it. I was just like, then I was outside. I was just like, oh, I made a right complete dick of myself. I got touched. No, I didn't get touched. There's only 2 people watching me at that time, thank God. But unfortunately, after that, one of my investigators got a coin thrown at him, so we was managed to concentrate all our efforts over to that side. But interesting. So, what other experiences you had, Mark? What's been your?
I was with another team, the team Trevor and I met on. I was the director of the Portland, Oregon team before I moved to Idaho, and we had an investigation up on Mount Hood, which is one of the mountains in Oregon. 2 Native American people lived there, and there was stories of shadow people and them getting touched and scratched. So my team went up there. I had my assistant director videotape people's faces, necks. The guys pulled up their shirts and they videotaped their backs and their arms. So we're inside. It's all dark. We've got our infrared cameras going, and we're asking questions, and we can see what looks like shadows moving. And about the time I saw one of the shadows move, I asked it if it could touch me. And I felt this little tiny kind of a tickle on my left arm. And without even thinking, I try to think a little bit better now, but without even thinking back then, I said, "Is that the best you can do? Never tempt fate." And next thing I know, I told my assistant who had the camera to come over to me, and I said, "Something just tickled my left arm, inside of my left arm here." And so he's filming it, and all of a sudden you see a red line and a bunch of blood coming out of my arm. So it was kind of nice. Then Trevor's seen the scar. I've got the scar on my arm. I learned a long time ago that if you're willing to let them touch you, you say something like, "You may touch me, you can use my energy, don't hurt me." Uh, I learned a very valuable lesson when, like I said, my arm being tickled and saying, "Oh," being stupid and saying, "Oh, is that the best you can do?" Because you never know what's going to happen next.
It's a crazy thing. Like years ago when I first started, I used to do things like that all the time because I wanted, that. I was that selfish person where I wanted that personal experience and stuff like that. And to a degree, yeah, I still want it now, but it's a realm that we don't know what we're playing with. Like if you're potentially offering yourself to whatever's out there,
As bait.
yeah, as bait, like 99.9% of the time, nothing will happen. You can say, touch me, pull my hair if I had any hair or anything like that, make this piece of equipment move, feel free to use my energy. You don't know what's out there, like honestly, and it's just you're making a calculated guess that you're going to be okay after. Like I've never heard of any cases where people die from it or anything like that, but it's still, you're dealing with the unknown more than anything else, and I guess we should be cautious about that as well at the same time.
Well, yeah, and I always tell, especially new investigators or people going out on public investigations, that they need to be careful of what they ask for.
Yeah.
Kind of to Mark's point, because you may get it and a lot more than what you bargained for. But at the same time, I myself, I don't invite strangers to touch me. I think I always kind of do the analogy of like if I walked into a supermarket, and I was like, okay, feel free to touch my hand. I mean, what's the reaction people are going to give? And we talk about dealing with human spirits, and and I might word it something more like, hey, if you need to get my attention, you can tap me on the shoulder. If I'm not paying attention, let me know. But yeah, just but do be careful what you ask for, and like Mark said, be very specific about what you can, come up and touch my hand, or tap my shoulder. If you just say touch me, you might get pinched in the butt. Some people might like that. I don't know, but yeah. So
it's amazing how many areas around us that spirits, entities, ghosts, if you will, inhabit that we don't even think about until you start doing this type of things the three of us do. I would have never thought of going to a location where there may be ghosts. When I go on vacation, I purposely try to find a place that's supposedly haunted.
Me too.
It's funny. There's a place that if Kelly Berg's still on there, there's a place called Stewart Farm in Surrey that we originally approached them just to help them fundraise, and we interviewed the staff, any ghost stories and stuff like the odd shadow here and there and stuff like that, nothing substantial. And then after about 3 or 4 cracks at the whip of the place, we were just we were doing public investigations. We were using it as a kind of a practice center for the group. So we, setting up equipment, doing, sound checks. Everyone was learning from each other. We had like a kind of base camp. The whole place opened up, and it just became, like, where did this stuff come from? And we were presenting stuff to the staff, like staff that had been there for like 15, 20 years. And they were like, seriously? Like they were like blown away, and it was just like, yeah, no, I call this image, and I got this EVP, and it was nothing like menacing or anything like that. It wasn't demonic or anything like that. What people deem as demonic, but it was just like, I never know. And it's that, I guess it's that phrase, if you spend most of your life like running around, and you don't just take 5 minutes to kind of look around your environment you're in, just to see what's going on, kind of thing. Because I did when I was in Australia as well. Like I took my EVP recorder out when I was walking through. I lived in the middle of nowhere in Australia, and I took my voice recorder out, and I was just walking around the streets. You could hear horse and carts and stuff like that on the voice recorder. So there's a science to it as well. I'm not saying it was Casper the Friendly Ghost or anything like that, but it was residual, and it was coming through the voice recorder. So it's like, where does that where does that realm start and where does it stop, kind of thing. It's just fascinating.
Well, I couldn't agree more. Pete, my theory is that everywhere we go, I think people see spirits every day and don't even realize it.
Oh, totally.
That world is very much a part of this world, and I think that most people are completely oblivious, and unless we're specifically looking to find evidence thereof, you may not ever notice. And not to mention, I mean, adults. I mean, we are so quick to rationalize things that we hear, things that we see, and we'll dismiss it as something else. I mean, Mark talks about somebody yelling his name in his ear. I mean, that's happened to me multiple times when I was younger, and I always attributed it to, it's just my imagination. And and it wasn't until I became an investigator that I actually really started paying attention to those things.
Yeah.
And it's amazing the results that you can get when you actually really kind of dig into it and investigate it.
Well, and I think you hit the nail on the head, Trevor. You go to an investigation, and 99.9% of our investigations are at night. And the first thing a lot of the clients say is, "Oh, that's because the ghosts are active at night and not during the day." And no, they're active all the time. Just that there's usually so many daily noise that you don't hear the stuff. At night, it's quieter, so you're able to let your senses go and pick up on a lot of stuff that you wouldn't normally pick up with the daily noise out there.
Yeah, it's more so for us. It is. It's because evening time is more settling, with the traffic and wherever you are, that kind of thing. But we've been to a lot of places in the past, again, referring back to BC, where we had the opportunity to, investigate from 9 o'clock in the morning all the way through. And it's incredible. If you get that controlled environment where you don't get any noise outside or anything like that, it's almost to the point where you can pick up more, because I don't know, if I'm sitting in the dark, like pitch black, and it's like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm going to start seeing stuff anyway. My brain's going to start hallucinating anyway. And, I'm going to start seeing things that are not going to be there, but I'm not saying it's paranormal, but when you see things in daylight, it adds that more credibility to what you see as well. And plus you have other people there as well. It adds to the validity of what goes on more than anything else. So.
Yeah, for sure. I and the thing about it is we there was a comment earlier. Somebody posted that they believe that we coexist with spirits. I totally agree with that. And people often will attribute hauntings to a building, to this this structure that's that may or may not have anything to do with why that location is haunted. I mean, we don't know what was. There is so much history on this planet that has been forgotten, that we don't know about. I remember a story from, I was probably 8-10 years ago. I think it was in Paris, where they had a water main break on one of their main roads in the middle of Paris there. And they opened up the road and they found these catacombs underneath the street that they didn't know were there. Just this whole burial area, something right out of Indiana Jones, the skulls and the walls and all that. You look at television shows, and I take everything with a grain of salt, but that show, Curse of Oak Island, where they're drilling down, digging for that buried treasure, and they drilled down like 200. Yeah, but they did find but they found like pottery shards, like 200 feet underneath the earth, underneath the surface. I mean, we don't know what was here before we were, and so we look at places that were just recently built, like a new house, and they're having all this activity happen. Who knows?
Yeah. We got a comment from Nancy. Good evening, Nancy. As a genealogist, I photographed graves for Find a Grave. Years ago, photographing at a cemetery in Fort Langley on a hot summer day, I felt cold air move through me. Yeah, I investigated Fort Langley quite a few times. The actual fort itself it's one of the most historical places in BC. There was stories there of like Hudson Bay, fur trades and stuff like that. But I actually have some evidence to share with the audience in a little bit from one of the investigations I did at Fort Langley, but we'll come to that in a little bit as well. So no, interesting. So we have, us as a field, we really, I don't know, we haven't really progressed too far over the last 20, 30 years in relation to getting past that point of, we have an acknowledgement from EVPs, which we know, and, we've tapped into that, but then we get that. And, Trevor, we spoke about that last time when you were on my show about the abundance of crap that comes out of all the equipment, whether you've got the bit of plastic with a flashing light and stuff like that, which relatively does nothing. Right. So Mark, would you say that we've gone further in the field over the years, or would you say we're taking a step back?
In some incidences, I think we've taken a step back for the simple fact that there's so many ghost shows on TV that the places you go to do investigations, specifically residents, they want to see the flashing lights. They want to see, that kind of stuff because they saw it on TV, and because you've got a K2 meter or something like that, a REM pod, one of these type of tools that we do have to go along with other things, that we don't just use that one specific item, say, oh, well, the light lit up, so there's a ghost there. It helps when you've got 4 and 5 and 6 things at once going off. But anyway, the people want to see all the flashing lights, because if they don't have the flashing lights and the doodads, they're thinking nothing's there, and that's not always the case.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I think in some instances we've definitely taken some steps forward. One, I think the field is getting a lot better recognition than it used to. It's not so weird walking into a building anymore and say, hey, we hunt ghosts. You got any stories for us? Most people are fairly receptive to that because they've seen the shows and things like that. It's not quite as taboo as it used to be. However, also the technology, I think, is getting better. We're getting better equipment. With that better equipment, it's getting more sensitive. We're able to catch more EVPs. The video quality is getting a lot better. I think we're making some advances there. However, with that technology and with that as social media, I think is also where we're taking a step back, because now people are taking videos and they're editing them and they're adding stuff and they're hoaxing things, and nobody, kind of like mainstream media, nobody knows what to believe anymore. And so nobody knows what's factual data, what's not,
Yeah, because you can make a computer. I am not computer savvy, but from what I've been told, you can make a computer do just about anything you want it to.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, like the stuff that you see like on social media and stuff like that, 9 times out of 10, I look at the person that actually sends it out, and I look at them as a person who's just like, well, and I don't mean to pull judgment on most people, and then you kind of think to yourself, well, is this person trustworthy in relation to what he sent out? Because 99.9% of the time they send out they put a picture out on Facebook and they say, here is that picture, and you're like, okay, that's fine. And then until you start then they start feeling uncomfortable about the questions that you ask. You're like, well, what was your camera set on, and what was this, and what, and it's like they're like, well, I don't know, it was my phone camera and stuff like that. It's like, well, you didn't really study the variables on what the natural causes could be before you put it out there, and making that assumption that it's paranormal. Oh, it is paranormal because my friend told me, who's an expert, and it's just like, but
well, the part, and I always warn people as well, they'll contact us, Western Idaho Paranormal, and say, hey, I've got this video, I got this picture, would you guys mind taking a look? And I said, absolutely, we'd be happy to take a look at it. Please understand, we are going to scrutinize it, and we're going to give you our best answer, and it may not be what you're thinking it's going to be. Yeah. Because we're going to dissect it. And as long as people understand that, if you put something up on Facebook or Instagram or anywhere where people are going to be looking at it, buckle up, because people are they're going to break it apart and they're going to try to tear it down. And if it's, if it's legitimate, then it's legitimate. And if it's not, people will find out.
Well, I think part of the problem we have with, in my opinion, and it's just my opinion, with the ghost shows, the people watch these shows and they're either a half hour long or an hour long. And at the end of the show, they kind of tell the audience what they got. What they don't tell them is when they go to these locations, there's an army of investigators. I mean, there's tons and tons of recorders and tons of cameras, and they've got hundreds and hundreds of hours worth of audio and hundreds of hours worth of video, and they might get just a little snip here or there. And when people go, what's it like being a paranormal investigator? I say, well, the best way I can describe that is being like a police officer. Being a police officer is 90% boredom with 10% sheer terror. And being a paranormal investigator is 90% boredom with 10%, my God, did you hear that? And that's what we live for, that 10%, because, anybody that's done this in investigations in any length of time will realize that on an average investigation for our team anyway, we've got anywhere from 4 to 5 audio cameras, 3 to 5 video cameras, and they may run 4, 6, 8 hours. Well, then somebody afterwards has to sit there and go through that frame by frame, inch, second by second, and all that kind of stuff. And if you're lucky, you might get an EVP, or if you're lucky, you might get a shadow go across the room. And that's out of hundreds of hours. So it's not like a lot of people, I kind of believe, think that, because we're going to have them investigate, they're going to find all kinds of stuff everywhere. It doesn't work that way. And that doesn't mean their place hasn't got some paranormal activity. It just means we didn't get anything.
Let's talk about evidence. So over the years, what would you say has been the most compelling evidence that you've got from investigations?
Go ahead, Mark.
Well, I can think of I can think of 3 major ones, what I would call Class A's, and there's been several Class B's, but 3 Class A's. Number 1 would have to be me getting grabbed at the Idaho State Pen. The other one is me getting cut on my forearm. And then there's a location in Oregon called the Columbia River Gorge Hotel. It's halfway between Pendleton and Portland on the Columbia River. And we're doing an investigation there for Valentine's Day, and they were running a special for X amount of dollars. You can come, have dinner, go on an investigation, spend the night, and then when you get up in the morning after breakfast, the paranormal team will let you know any evidence they got. So we do the investigation, and the guests are all in bed, sleep. It's like 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning. I've got a set of headphones on, listening to a specific room that had previously been told to us was very haunted. And without getting into a long, huge explanation, there was a team in there, just happened to be all of women. 2 of our investigations were women, and their guests were all women. They're in this room, and across the hall, they hear this guy beating on the door across the hall, and he's really intoxicated, and he's cussing and swearing, and his girlfriend won't let him in. And finally, he kicks the door in, breaks the locks and all that kind of stuff. And he goes away. Well, you can hear one of the investigators on the tape say, well, I hope that's done. And so I'm listening to all this, like I say, 3 or 4 hours later. And right after you hear the gal in the room say, well, I hope it's all over with, I hope it's done, you hear this kind of a male gravelly voice go, not yet. And about an hour later, the guy did come back. So that was my first EVP I had ever heard. And that was on a Saturday night, Sunday morning. And I don't think I got to sleep till Tuesday because I was just wired.
Yeah. What about you, Trevor? What do you had?
Yeah. As far as like evidence goes, I think, some of the best evidence that we get are some of those EVPs, and I know on your other show, we've played a couple of clips like the by data clip that we caught out at tuberculosis hospital in Gooding, Idaho. That's a crystal clear Class A EVP. That was fantastic. And we've also, this last go around, we've caught that same child's voice again. And I think that's kind of the compelling evidence to me, is that evidence that you get when you go back the second time, and it kind of just validates the first time, where, you're catching that one child's voice, you're catching it again and again. We've had the same experience at the Geyser Grand Hotel in Baker, Oregon, where we caught the little girl's voice multiple times down in the basement. For me, I've had some personal experiences. We don't count personal experiences as evidence, but I mean, from the little girl that was down in the Geyser Grand Hotel, I actually saw her, and I was one of only a handful of people that have ever seen her, and I had no idea other people had seen her. And when I talked to the director of that other team and I recounted that experience and explained what I'd seen, apparently I had described her the same way as the other people had described her, which was really cool. That was probably one of the biggest validations for me as far as a haunting. So
I think with personal experiences, yeah, you're right. You can't disclose that as evidence unless you have, and we've done this in the past, or I have, where you have multiple witness the same thing.
Right.
Then I believe it goes over that threshold, and it's not, oh my God, I just saw this, and then Joe by the side of me, like the power of suggestion, seeing exactly the same thing. It's where you both see the same thing at the same time, and you're both like kind of taking a step back, and you're looking at each other and going, okay, what did you just see? And then it rings true to what you hear, and then you got that kind of validation. I think then after that, it kind of it delves more into, it's validation in respect to evidence, and it's presentable as well. But
personal experiences are very cool, but you can't use that as a basis for evidence, because it's usually only a one-person thing, and you need to have something else collaborate that.
Exactly. Yeah. Evidence has got to be something that's tangible to the audience, something that they can hear, something that they can see. That's one of the reasons why we, I'm not against having mediums, and I know that there's real deal psychics out there and people who are very, very gifted. But even then, unless you have somebody there who either already knows the answers, already knows the name of the entity, already knows, has all that information, and the psychic goes in blind and is able to give all that information, you'd be able to use that as evidence there. But otherwise, you kind of have to take it all with a grain of salt, because again, you don't know what they're seeing, and that's what makes this field so tough. I think everything that we do is so hard to get that tangible evidence to people, to really show them, that this stuff is on the up and up.
It is, and like when we present things as well, over the years I've presented pictures, I've presented EVPs to clients and stuff like that. The emphasis has been that I don't deem this as paranormal, but I cannot explain how this occurred, whether this voice was on there or whether I got this picture and stuff like that. And it's with pictures and stuff like that, I classify them as finds, because they are, something that I like. If I got a picture of, I'll go to some pictures in a minute, but if I captured something of interest, I'd go, okay, I knew that situation at the time, that environment was controlled. I was aware of that room was shut off at the time, that, I knew at that time no one was in the building and stuff like that. And I will present that, and I will say that I cannot explain this. And I will not say for 1 minute that this is Casper the Friendly Ghost or anything like that, or try and make him that way. I would say this is what I found. You can make your own mind up what it is, and it's the same with EVPs as well. And that's kind of important, the way we translate that as well, because I hear things totally different to other people, and that should be, presented to as well. But I've documented a couple of pictures that I've captured over the last 10 years from some various locations, and just to kind of delve back, when I like my thing when I investigate, I use still cameras and I use like motion sensors and lasers and receivers that send signals to the camera to make the shutters go off. I've also experimented with light. I go from experiment from both UV to ultraviolet, and I experiment with those different tones at different colors as well. Over the past 10 years, there is a few pictures that I've caught. I probably caught around about 12 pictures that I have no logical explanation behind it, because I was aware of what went on at that time. And I presented to the client and said, look, make your own mind up what it is, that kind of thing, but this is not what I can explain. I'll just bring up a couple of them now. So this one is, this is a historical hotel in British Columbia. I can't give up the location, but because we signed a confidentiality agreement, but I'm able to disclose evidence. This was a hotel that dated back to the mid to late part of the 18th century. So it's one of the first stables that one of the first areas that was actually built in BC. So it has quite a significant amount of history to it. The history's kind of juggled, you hear different stories and stuff like that. But they opened this one floor, the top floor up, a few years back and they opened them up as rooms, but it was always, as far back as they can remember, it was always like floorboards up there, drywall was always ripped up and stuff like that. So it had just been recently renovated, and I set my cameras up, a laser and receiver, from one end of the landing to the other. And this is one of the first shots I picked up. So if you look at the right-hand side, you see that figure standing in the doorway.
Oh yeah.
So that for me, I can't explain that. That was around about 10 o'clock at night. We were all downstairs. I actually shut off downstairs so no one could walk upstairs. There's a figure standing there in a doorway. And this is the, if you look at that's the zoom in version of it as well.
Wow.
So I've had people comment on it and stuff like that, but it looks like a guy in a blue suit with a hat. Like
That's exactly what I'm looking at
there.
And it's kind of cool because he's kind of transparent. You can kind of see through him a little bit.
Yeah. What's also
and actually it's actually a very, that's a very classic apparition sighting. I mean, you talk about you're seeing kind of a torso. You can't really make out. I mean, we might be able to make out the legs, but a lot of people, when they say that they see an apparition, they see it kind of in that format where they see that free floating torso, no defined legs. That's kind of what that looks like. I mean, you might be able to kind of see a leg there. That's a really cool photo, Pete.
Yeah, it was like I called it because we were going through because when one of the downfalls about lasers and receivers is when the batteries start running out, they just start clicking. And in that particular night, I probably had about 600-700 pictures of the same thing.
Wow.
And I was just going click, 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 drink my tea, click, 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 click. And then I stopped and I was on the phone and I came back and it was the next one that clicked up was this here, this picture. And I was like, and I carried on going. I'm like, something moved, something happened in the last picture. That's why I jumped back. And it was this, and it just came out of nowhere. But if you look at I had my laser and receiver going from the bottom part of the banister, going into the back end of that room, and going from the other end of the hallway. So it would have been on the left-hand side of the photo, but further back. Again, I can't, obviously I was aware of that situation and I knew it was controlled and stuff like that, but I can't, there's no explanation behind that whatsoever. But
out of the hundreds of pictures that the camera took, this is the only the picture that this apparition appears in?
It picked up, and to be honest with you, I don't even know if the laser and receiver actually picked it up or not, or whether it's the fact that the batteries were running out, because
wow.
it was in midstream of all of those pictures where I was going.
How quickly is it taking pictures at that point?
It's about 1.5 seconds.
Wow.
And it's not. I used to do a delayed shutter speed, but it's up for interpretation because you can get a blur image and stuff like that. I stopped it years ago, but I found where if I get it clicking like 1.5 second per frame. I can get the characteristics of an apparition. I've seen them manifest and that appear and then suddenly disappear in a series of frames, and that's why I set it so fast. That kind of thing. But
that's amazing. That's an amazing catch.
What's interesting? Totally cool. Yeah, no, it was good. But what was interesting about it was that one of the investigators was actually downstairs, and she took a similar picture of a guy standing in the doorway with a hat, but you could see his shoes downstairs in the floor below. But it was the same blue suit and stuff like that. So,
wow.
So incredible. So that was one of them, and then there was.
Was that presented to the hotel manager or the owners? What did they think?
They were like, they weren't too happy about. Well, they were happy because they knew that there was stuff going on, because there's a lot of. It's actually, and for me to say this, it's a very, very active place. Wow. And I don't honestly know the history of what went on there. I don't know whether there was any deaths on site or anything like that, because the stories I've heard have never been consistent, and it's been there's always been different stories and stuff like that. One moment it was like a whorehouse during the time when they're building the railways and stuff like that, and then it got totally dismissed, and then I don't know the stories, and but that area there, and there was a couple of areas in the buildings that were hot spots. But we were the last time we were there, we was actually in the dining room area, and there was about 8 of us in the dining room area, and I thought I saw someone walk into the hotel. Like that, it was clear. It was an old guy in a black trench coat, and I can still see him now with like a grey balding hair around here. I saw him walk into the hotel from the main entrance, and he walked into the bar area at the back. So I got up, and I'm like, I've got all my equipment out the back. So I got up thinking there's a guy out there. I walked, and it's like me looking at you, Trevor or Mark. And I didn't even think 1 minute it was paranormal. So I walked out the back, no one was there. And I'm like, hello, hello. So I went in the back of the kitchens, no one's there or anything like that. The hotel was locked. We were the only guys in there. And I searched that hotel with my team top and bottom, because I didn't think it was paranormal. I thought that there was someone in there. And it wasn't, that hazy apparition or anything like that. It was me looking at someone straight on kind of thing. And then it just went. That was another thing, and there was a series of events after that, but it's a really, really active place.
Well, that goes right back to talking about how I think people see spirits every day and don't even realize it. I don't think they look all grotesque. They're definitely not white sheets floating around. They just look like people.
They don't.
Hey, I got a question for both of you. You hear about little kids and their imaginary friends. They haven't had their brain polluted like adults have about what's real, what's not real, and so forth and so on. What is your feeling on the fact that maybe these imaginary friends might, in fact, be spirits?
I've had investigations before where we've actually, but going into too much specifics, but we've actually had evidence on the description and names that a child's given us of a particular individual that's in a house. So children are susceptible, the same as animals as well. They have that, they look at things with a conscious eye, rather than us looking at things when we get older. Our brain starts dismissing things and stuff like that. And it's the ongoing thing that every paranormal investigator says the same thing over and over again, but it's true, like 100%. Like when I go and look at residential cases, I ask about the pets and stuff like that, because they're the ones that can see shit. Like they're the ones that zone into the area, and they're not going to bullshit about stuff either. They're gonna know where the activity is, and that's normally a telltale sign more than anything as well. Sorry, Trevor, over to you, buddy.
Well, I totally agree. I don't want to get too far into the weeds here because I want to see some more cool pictures that Pete's got. But yeah, my sister had an imaginary friend for quite a while, and we completely but I mean, the consistency that she had with that that friend. His name was Jacques. I remember it to this day. I mean, things from like when my mom was taking a bath, and Brittany, she was just a little girl. And she was walking around the corner to talk to mom for something. And then all of a sudden she starts screaming at Jacques to get back. You don't come into the bathroom when mom is taking a bath. And just, it scared my mom to death. She was grabbing towels and trying to cover up. And, and then one day Jacques just walked into the woods and disappeared, and he was gone. And he was with her for, I don't know, 1 or 2 years. I mean, it was pretty bizarre. So I totally am on board with that theory that there's some form of spirit there. And, they've proven that children, their eyesight is different than ours. As adults, I mean, we're subjected to, our eyesight just gets worse and worse as time goes on, from radiation from the sun to how much we're staring at screens and everything else. Children, they practically pretty much see in a different light spectrum. So when they're looking around and they're saying, well, I'm seeing something in my closet, they very well may be seeing something in your closet. We retain some of that as adults, and that's what in our peripheral vision, which is why we catch movement so well in our peripheral vision.
But the non-believers say that we got pins in our eyes, that's why we see things at the corner of our eyes and stuff like that. But there's been a lot of parallels with things in the past where people have seen things in the corner of their eye, and it turns out that there's been documented things happening in that area, that kind of thing. My next one is, we're talking about schools and kids and stuff. Kids. We got called to an investigation about 4 years ago. We did. Longer than that, probably about 8 years ago. And this place is probably one of the most active commercial buildings that I've ever been in. And we spent 4 years at this place, and it's a school down in the Lower Mainland, just outside of Vancouver. And it got to the point where every investigation we went out on, everyone had personal experiences with other people. Like,
wow.
I went out with a friend of mine, Richard, is a doctor from the UK. He's borderline non-believer, not skeptical or anything like that, but he obviously, being a doctor, he's into science. He's bred into science. He analyzes things completely different to what I do. We were at this particular area where I'm going to show you the picture in a minute, and we were talking like I was talking to you guys, and we were looking over towards a doorway, and there was a fire exit sign above the door, and we both saw this white cloud go above the door. And Richard was talking, blubbing away, as us English do, and he wouldn't stop talking. And all of a sudden he stops, and I'm stopping dead, and I'm looking at this as well. And he's like, and there was a pause for about 5 seconds, and he carries on. And I'm like, and at the end of it, I said, Richard, did you just see what I just saw above the door? And he looked at me, and with a disgruntled voice, he goes, well, I was hoping you didn't see that. And I was like, what did you see? And they described everything I saw as well. But this place, honestly, and this particular night, I set up my motion camera there, and this particular time I simulated with infrared light this night, and I set it up and I illuminated the room, that kind of thing, and it picked up one motion that night, and it picked up this picture. If you can visualize where the tables are and stuff like that, on the left-hand side, you have that kind of cloud. By the side of it, on the left-hand side, that light, that's actually an infrared light projecting into that room. And over in the corner on the right-hand side, there's a laser and receiver as well, which picked up that motion going through. And this is the only picture I got. There seems to be, as defined, some kind of manifestation going on there. And you could see in the background of the wall some kind of shadow as well, with perhaps some legs and stuff like that.
Now, what light spectrum is this in?
It's infrared.
Infrared?
Yeah. It was.
That picked it up really, really well, didn't it?
It did, and unfortunately, I didn't get anything else after that. It just picked up one picture that night, and it was oddly enough, it didn't pick up on the laser and receiver, because this particular camera had just a motion sensor on top. The other camera was situated further back, but it's this particular camera has instead of having a glass lens, it has a crystal lens as well. So it doesn't absorb light like you get all pictures and glare and stuff like that.
Right.
So this camera is kind of foolproof in relation to trying to explain this to someone that has that has an idea about cameras and stuff like that. So yeah, I can't explain this picture.
That's pretty interesting, and that's one of the things that I wondered about with entities and spirits and stuff, and the different forms that they seem to be able to take. And I've never really understood the whole mist thing. And I always kind of just like, all right, because I've seen a lot of pictures like, yeah, it's cigarette smoke, that's somebody exhaling on a cold day or whatever. And it wasn't until recent investigation, I saw a cloud, a mist that appeared in front of me and was, I don't know, how fast did it move for you, Pete?
It was like someone blowing cigarette smoke. It was like kind of haze, and it was. I've had it over the years where there's one particular picture I don't have on there, but there's a famous ghost over in Vancouver Island, Bastion Square, called a lady in white. It's always a lady in white. It's never a lady in tartan or green or purple or anything like that. But there's a lady in white who walks around Bastion Square, and she was apparently the first and last lady ever to get hung in BC. And I caught her a manifestation, like walking through the room, and you could actually see her. The very last frame that I got was a picture of her with black hair walking away from the camera, and it was perfect. You could see like a little bit of a haze, then a semi apparition of her, then you could actually see her in, you could see the black hair, and you could see like her in white as well. Perfect. And it was just perfect in the way it was captured as well, because again, it was controlled as well. So,
have either of you walked through a cloud when you've seen it?
I've walked through a shadow. Many years ago, I came face to face with a shadow figure, and it was. I'm weird like that because I act differently to most people when it comes to when my adrenaline starts kicking in and stuff like that. Rather than kind of taking a step back, I like to, I don't know, for some strange reason, it manifested in front of me with my VP at the time. She actually witnessed it as well, and I walked through it rather than trying to take a step back, taking pictures and stuff like that. And I walked through it, and it's the weirdest thing ever, Mark, because a lot of people say that they feel cold when they walk through spirits and stuff like that, when they feel like that, there's going to be a manifestation. I never felt that. I felt like when you put your finger on doorbell wire and stuff like that low voltage. I felt that when I walked through it, that kind of like minor electrical charge in my body. And it was
the reason why I asked is my ex-wife, who she is a sensitive and has clients all over the world, and she is the real deal. But anyway, we were down in Colonial Williamsburg, Virginia, on vacation, and that place is extremely haunted. And I was walking from the bedroom to the kitchen in the condo, and as I'm walking, one of those white cloud mists appeared literally just a few inches in front of me. And of course, I'm walking, so I literally walked through it. I could see my breath when I'm talking to Julie at the time. I said, something like, "Do you see this?" And I can see my breath. And it felt like literally hundreds of thousands of icy needles just going through me for a split second. And then it was gone.
Crazy.
Yeah, when we investigated that Basque restaurant in Boise, Mark, and we were cleaning up, you were there on that one.
Right.
This was just recently, and up until that point, I'd never seen a mist or anything like that. But we were down in the basement, and it's a heated basement, and we were cleaning up, and I was just doing a final walkthrough, making sure that we had all our equipment. And as I got my flashlight up, because it's still dark, I'm walking, and all of a sudden it was like somebody exhaled in a very cold environment. You could just see this mist all of a sudden just right there in front of me. And I walked through it. I didn't feel anything. I got to be honest, other than shocked, like, whoa, that just happened. Just kind of, it was there and then it was gone. It was super quick. And Yeah, it was weird.
Gives you kind of a tingly feeling, though, doesn't it?
Now it does. God, whoa. So, but we talk about like shadows, and I know we're getting late on time here, but and maybe if we could leave this, but I have felt a cold spot while I stuck my hand right through a shadow person that was standing in front of me. So
yeah, it's weird because the different experiences people have had over the years, because I've got a vast following on Facebook as well, and they all, most of them mention about temperature change. And even being in the environment of which I get, and that's one of the things that I look for as well. I've got thermal imaging and stuff like that. I don't use EMF or anything like that. I look for temperature change. But for me, it was walking straight through it. It wasn't me walking into like a freezer or anything like that. It was the fact where I just got that charge in my body, and it just I had the mark thing where I couldn't sleep that night. I was just wired for a couple of days after that, and it just blew me away. But this last picture, and time is going on. This last picture is actually from Fort Langley, and we were actually talking about it earlier on as well. So this particular restaurant was called the Lamplighters in Fort Langley, and unfortunately it's closed down now because I think the buildings are going to be demolished or whatever. But it's been vacant now for some time. But we were called in there a number of times because both the staff and some customers had various accounts of paranormal activity and stuff like that. It was very, like, as a whole, we were there probably about 8 or 9 times at different times over probably about 2 to 3 years. It was very periodic in relation to the activity, but we did document some good stuff. This particular picture was, I actually found this probably about 8 months after the investigation, where sometimes your SD card goes missing. You pick out the SD card that night and you put it into another box and you forget all about it. And it was only when I was going through this one and I was just about to delete, and I sent it to one of my other investigators, and she's like, "Did you not see that picture?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And I'm going backwards and forwards, and I couldn't see it, but I'll explain it to you anyway. So this is the first picture. So this is the restaurant areas. You can see the seating areas and stuff like that. So what we have, there's a doorway which goes through to the second part of the restaurant, which is a second building as such. And they bought both the buildings and knocked it into one kind of thing. A lot alleged activity around that area was things like moving furniture. Like they go in the morning, things would be moved around, tables would be turned over, that kind of, the run-of-the-mill paranormal experiences and stuff like that. So we set up this camera, and we left for a few hours, and we were going to come back that morning, I believe, if memory serves me correctly. No. Sorry, no, we were downstairs. That's right. So we were downstairs investigating the cellar, and we left the camera upstairs for running for about 2 to 3 hours. And this was taken the early hour of the morning. So just as a perspective, as you look on the left-hand side where that it looks like a black pillar is, that's actually a doorway which goes into the outside. Originally, the doorway was extended out probably about 2 to 3 feet. So it gives you an idea. So I'm going to jump to the next picture. Just focus around that area where that picture is as well. And I'll jump to the next frame.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
So that woman there, I'm going to say it's a woman. I'm just going to throw it out there. That scared the crap out of me when I saw that, because that had no reminiscence of any investigator we had there that night, and it looks nothing like any of the staff that work there or the owners or anything like that. The thing is that is interesting about that picture more than anything else is that where that column goes down, it kind of breaches over her right arm slightly, but that's actually a doorway there. So if she was actually standing flat against that wall where her head was, where the picture was, half her body would actually, probably half the 1/3 of her body. No, would it be? Yeah, it'd be quarter of her body would actually be either in the door itself or actually outside. Wow. Because of where she was positioned.
Yeah, she's blocking the picture.
Oh, totally.
Totally, and it just honestly that picture there, because me showing you these pictures, you guys can say, it could be this, it could be that, or anything like that. Like me, wholeheartedly, when I looked at that, I have no explanation for that whatsoever. And to this day, I will take that picture to the grave with me, and I know 100% that there was no. That I'm not, I'm not saying faking it or anything like that, but I know that there was no one in that building at that time that even fitted that description, like that, the bushy hair and stuff like that. And it just,
Wow.
That's awesome. And I tell people, I mean, the rarest is, I may be wrong, but as far as I know, the rarest type of evidence that we get are still photographs. I mean, they are very rare, and you've got some pretty awesome ones. Maybe I'm thinking I'm going to have to steal some of this technology from you. I'm going to get on my R&D guy.
No. In all honesty, over the years where I've experimented with different colors and different spectrums of light and stuff like that, I've had either more success with UV light, either UV or with colored light, or with just a normal camera. Just a normal run of the camera. Just don't mess with the shutter speed or anything like that. Just set the camera up, set it on motion, and just let it do its thing. Because you bet your bottom dollar that if there's anything you pick up on it, it will pick it up, regardless of the color and stuff like that. And it's, I've tried for decades to see whether there's a specific spectrum that I can tap into to get, a better picture and stuff like that. I can get them with normal cameras now. So it's that kind of that niche more than anything else. But
those are some pretty impressive picks. That's really awesome.
Totally cool.
Thanks. Okay, well, I think that's it. We've gone over a little bit, but
that's all it's a good show, man. We just keep on going.
Just keep rambling on. I was just like,
thank you so much for having me on the show.
Mark, always a pleasure, buddy. And thank you, Trevor.
This was good fun. So
it's definitely I enjoyed this one actually. It's nice to actually break into just talking about our experiences and the evidence we find and stuff like that, rather than the theories of that kind of thing. But I think this is how we progress the field, right? We sit there and we talk about our experiences and we talk about the evidence we collect and how we got it. And I think that's sharing that information is huge. Yeah, it is, and it's the fundamental reason why we join this field as well, the stories, and that's if you ever get bored of hearing the stories of what we do and our experiences and stuff like that, I think it's time to rethink of what you're doing in the field more than anything else, because it is the foundation, and everyone loves a good story.
Well, I think the thing that's really cool about this type of situation is, people go, well, do you get any answers? And I said, yeah, you do. But the problem with that is for every little teeny tiny snip of an answer you get, that opens up 1,000 more questions.
It does, totally. Oh, the last question. Okay, yeah. Okay.
About orbs. Let me tell you about orbs.
It's dust.
Dust.
Not always, but anyway. Long story for another time, guys.
Yes.
Thank you everyone for tuning in. And honestly, if you like the show and you have a YouTube account, if you're tuning in from Facebook, can you please go on to our YouTube channel, I Want to Believe, and like and subscribe the channel, the show, and obviously subscribe to the channel as well, because we, if we would like you guys to rely on you guys for your support. So that's good. Final words, guys. You just want to plug your team, put yourselves out there for the world?
Yeah. Hey, go to www.widparad.com. Check us out on our webpage. You can see our investigations on there. We post our evidence on there. Like Pete, we don't doctor our stuff. What we catch is what we put on there. So thanks for having us. And we also have a Facebook page as well, Western Idaho Paranormal, and love to chat with everybody.
And we don't ever charge for our services.
No.
Never.
Nope.
Never.
If somebody's charging you, you're getting scammed.
Yeah, because they're going to have to say, "Oh yeah, we got this or got that" to justify charging you.
And for $5,000, we'll get rid of it.
Yeah. I kind of look at the way that if I was a plumber, I would charge X amount to come around your house because I'm qualified in that trade. But for me as a paranormal investigator to come around your house, I'm not qualified in anything. And in fact, I'm a novice in what I do. And everyone
that's all we all.
you can't quantify stuff like that. That's for sure. But okay, guys, we will be back on in the new year, probably second, third week of January once I get the schedule out there. Like I say, in the new year, we're going to start off with interviewing witnesses of the paranormal. We've got one guy coming on as well that has claimed to be abducted by aliens, and many people have come forward as well with stories of living in haunted houses and stuff like that. So the content should be good. So
Awesome.
Merry Christmas and
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Speak to you guys before. Have a wonderful new year.
You too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.